Mike, obviously another long trip coming up for you at the weekend off the back of, well, the longest one of the season at the weekend. Obviously, I mean, the boys sort of in training and stuff like that this week. I suppose it'd be difficult for the atmosphere not to be positive on the back of a result like that.
Yeah, it has been. Give the boys Sunday, Monday off the back of getting home the early hours of Sunday morning, being a long one. But yeah, we've had a good couple of days to work. We got another long trip, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, and I mean, you've mentioned before the sort of never too high, never too low side of things. I suppose it usually tends to more come up with people when they're talking about after a bad result and bouncing back from it. But is it very much the same of not getting carried away when you've had a good result like you have had at the weekend?
I don't think these boys get carried away. I think we've always got stuff to work on. I think in terms of the person, it's always on a level. It's always that balance. As professionals and players, it's never enough. So ultimately we've got an outcome that we want to achieve, and that keeps going, and that's football in terms of the next action or the next half or the next game. So we're just focused on how difficult it's going to be on Saturday and making sure that we're prepared as possible.
Yeah, and you mentioned Saturday there, of course, the trip to Aldershot coming up for you. I mean, them specifically, they've probably had a bit of an indifferent start in terms of inconsistent results-wise, but I mean, at home, they've certainly been putting goals past teams. I think they've scored the most at home out of any of the teams in the league. So, again, probably a different encounter for you, but as always, a tough one.
Yeah, I think we've won the same amount of games, so I think it's indifferent as us with wins. I think they're goal threats. Obviously, you can see they work their socks off. They've got an identity. They play when the opportunity arises, but they can also flip it and pick up second balls. I think we're going to have to work extremely hard to keep them away from our goal and make sure that we defend our box with our life.
And this game on Saturday, I mean, kicks off a pretty hectic schedule of Tuesday, Saturday, weeks from then on. After that, obviously, you've not really been hit by injuries in the same way as you were last season, thankfully. So you've got the majority of the squad available to kind of choose from for not only Saturday, but obviously the weeks after that. But I suppose if you've got any kind of mind on that at all, or is it very much just focused on Saturday and then we'll kind of deal with that as it comes afterwards?
I think there's obviously half an eye, but that doesn't change any facts that we want to go and put our strongest team out, what we deem. I've said before, our squad now is all at a level where I could make changes and it still be our strongest team, so the personnel doesn't really come into it. We look at how we can hurt the opposition. Obviously we want to build consistency in our results as well as personnel, but I'm a big proponent of changing it up and making sure that we're fresh. And like I say, there's no real distance between the quality of our squad players now, so it's a good place to be in. But yeah, we've got games that are going to pose our own questions, and the amount of it's going to also add to it.
Yeah, and in terms of not only the players that are playing for you here currently now, but obviously loanees out and around the divisions. Obviously, Larak Hassani in particular was named Player of the Month for South Shields. Obviously, they've been doing quite well at the minute. Obviously, a couple of lads at Blythe who've also been doing well at the minute. But so I suppose not just for you here, but for the lads you've got out on loan, if you ever kind of need to look to them to possibly come back into the fold at some point. Obviously, you know that they've been playing regular, and not only that, but they've been doing well.
Yeah, like you say, that's spot on. Good summary. The fact that the boys, Laraki, we've had glowing reports from day one. We know the honesty and the desire and his work rate, and we know his quality as well. And it seems to be showing week in, week out there, which is positive. Obviously, Ollie Thompson's out playing games, which is important for them. Yeah, Forbesy 90. Like I say, they've all had really good reports, and essentially, again, I say the distance between them being in the squad and the squads being in the team is not great at all. I think you can name any one of them, they can come back and get into this team, but it's just important that they get that robustness, they get the consistency, and they get that exposure. So when time does come, they come back and they can impact us.
Yeah, and I mean, when you mentioned in terms of the strength of the squad, that players who aren't involved in the starting 11 necessarily aren't far away or pretty much equal to being, on par with the strongest team. I suppose a problem you didn't have last season, especially earlier on when you had injuries and didn't maybe have that depth to pick from, but I imagine now a problem that you would much rather have to contend with the rest of the coaching staff.
100%, yeah. I think the hardest thing is for the boys who aren't consistently playing or do get left out is getting their minds around it, because they all deserve, you know, to get on the pitch and to be playing, but ultimately you can only pick the 11 and 16 for a squad and then only make 3 subs, which I think is a little bit off it, to be honest. With everywhere else, you know, you can have more subs and have more substitutions. But it's up to them. They've got to take that personal responsibility, and they can't allow frustration to take away from their progression and the group. And I speak to a lot of the lads about that, because as much as it's a team game, it's we're self-employed in the respect that you've got to do everything you possibly can. And if you allow frustration to take away from your own progression, then also you're going to be taken away from the chances of playing minutes on the pitch. So that's the difficult thing. It's hard for myself, because I've got to pick the team with a lot of worthy candidates to start every single game, but these are the problems we want.
Yeah, and touching on the injury side of things, there any real change from last weekend on that front?
Wheelo's progressing, but other than that, like I say, Knight's picked up a little niggle, so just be careful with that. But obviously I think we're all good.